For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Good evening. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL Montreal's Josh Miller. Happy New Year, Josh.
Happy 2018, Dan. Still, I guess we're still third week of January, so...
Is it not too late for the Happy New Year?
I guess not too late. Listen, we're going to have a top 2018 list somewhere, so I'm sure we can still say Happy 2018.
Now, today on the program, we're actually going to take our first show of the year to do something a bit different. We've been doing Today's Entrepreneur for almost a decade now, and throughout this time, people always asking me about you guys and about Fuller Landau and what you guys do for a living. So we're just going to turn the tables and devote the show to talk about what you do for a business and what inspires you guys.
And kind of a little bit what makes us tick. Maybe not all the secrets, but should be fun to hear. We have a few partners that might be a little nervous, but we'll be good. Well, I'll be good. I don't know about Mike.
Joining us in studio is Mike Newton, also a partner at FL, who fills in for you, Josh, when you're out of town. And Mike is notoriously shy.
I am, and once again, even though he is here, I'm still the fill-in for Josh Miller. All right.
I'm sorry. We also have Patrick Sullivan here, and Patrick will talk a little bit later in the program about how to prevent people from stealing from your business, stealing ideas, really, or stealing products.
Stealing basically money. How to watch out so you don't get rooked or screwed.
That's coming up in the program. But first, before we sort of dig into to you guys and how you guys started in business and all of that, let's get to our entrepreneurial news and notes for 2018. And in late 2017, I was still writing a lot about artificial intelligence and that sort of boom in Montreal, and that continues to fascinate me, Josh. And we're seeing a lot more growth in the tech sector. There was an AI forum here in Montreal last week. And there, again, leaders from companies like Microsoft and Google are still saying that the growth is maintaining and Montreal is still becoming really this AI hub around the world, maybe even the AI hub. I'll just throw this out there. I mean, how can local entrepreneurs, you think, maybe take advantage of this burgeoning tech sector? Maybe we can encourage entrepreneurs to perhaps look for a graduate student who can add a tech element to their business or partner up with one of these tech companies.
Well, there's no question that the international world is looking at Montreal. Montreal AI has been on the IT front, certainly back in, or still with its gaming days, gaming development and with Ubisoft and all that, but definitely gained a lot with AI. It's really being out there, like you could say with almost any business, certainly in the tech field as well. It's being out there, it's being present, it's attending conferences, it's getting to know people, it's getting to know the right people, using the right space. It's really hitting the pavement. And of course, it's being online. It's showing your platform online. It's joining forums and communities, online or other, and it's really just getting your name out there that much more. If of course you have that right AI product or augmented reality, that's another aspect of technology that's definitely in the forefront. Then that too can be. But do you have the right product, or do you have the right developer, and maybe do you have the right influencer or connector that can do it? So there's a bunch of things that businesses can do, but you have to put in the effort, you have to put in the energy, and you kind of have to put in some dollars too. So you have to look for investors and venture capital as well.
Story from the Gazette the other day about Montreal firms finding practical and fanciful applications for augmented reality. So this is, I guess, sort of a parallel field. And basically the story is saying how, there are all kinds of different configurations for augmented reality. This is the thing where I guess you're maybe looking at a product and then a visual or computer display sort of goes over top of it.
Well, really what it is, it's not virtual reality, it's augmented reality. And augmented reality really tries to place the user in the virtual world. It really tries to put virtual elements in the real world. That's really what it does. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at your living room and you wanted to see a coffee table there, then you can place the coffee table in the picture of your living room just with your iPad, your iPhone, your tablet, whatever you want to do. Just like Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go was an augmented reality because you saw the Pokemons on your screen wherever you were traveling in the world. So that's what augmented reality is. But there's so many more applications to it, and so much more that can be done. And there's the article was really on this company Sensopia, who is really trying to use it to the nth degree in any and all applications, including for construction companies, including for, they have the plans. You can plan out a room, get the square footage, and then come back to, okay, I need this much paint to fill exactly all the walls, and then it's going to take me exactly this long to paint it. It's really creating quite the precision out of it.
There's the story in Financial Post you wanted to highlight about sort of thinking in a non-traditional way and being on your toes in this case when an opportunity arises. And this story is about ballet, actually.
It's about actually it's a new way for ballerinas to dance their toes. There's a lot of pressure on their toes, but the story, I don't want to talk about ballerina's toes, more that she tried to get into the business. She tried to go to the wholesalers. She tried to go to the stores and the retail to get it done. Got absolutely nowhere. So what did she do? She went on her Instagram and she went directly to the ballerinas themselves. She went to the end user, the consumer, said, showed pictures, showed the whole process, what it's all about, got connected with a couple of higher level ballerinas, and it just flowed from there. So her use of going direct to consumer instead of trying to sell the reseller, the wholesaler, the retailer, that was really what helped. So that was what I was going to highlight. And in next week's show, and when we speak with Bureaucracy, we're going to see that their Instagram, their part of their package in their group, they've used Instagram since Instagram began, and it's huge. So it was just a story that get out of your comfort zone a little bit and sometimes go direct to consumer using some online tools.
This is a story in the Financial Post again about convergence being a serious threat to small business and retail operations. And today we had those Amazon Go stores appear in some locations across North America. There again, another example of the changing retail landscape.
Just competition from the big guys, when Google and Walmart start to connect, and everybody's looking for lower prices and distribution, ease to get the product to your own door. These monsters have the deep pockets to do it well. And if you want to get in, you want to compete, you better look at your logistics side. You better look at your user friendliness of your website and make sure that you have those abilities. No, I mean, just two of them, but those things really down pat, because with these monsters start getting together, it's even that going to be that much harder for smaller retailers.
Finally, Dan Kelly, the president of the Canadian Federation for Independent Business, writes in the Financial Post about the things to watch for in 2018 when it comes to small business. We can run through a couple of them now, but perhaps the first maybe we can deal with is the NAFTA crisis in Canada. What are your thoughts on that and how that's shaping up in 2018?
I'm just waiting for Mike to just jump in and say something. He's been so good and so quiet. I thought he was just going to jump in right there.
I'm still trying to get over the thought of the word ballerina and monster and Josh in the same sentence. So
it's not a visual show, so it's okay. NAFTA, there's no question. I think a lot of people, are certainly the Canadian government, and nobody knows where it's going to go necessarily, but a lot of focus has become on CETA, the European Union, and really, the Canadian government saying, go take advantage of that agreement, that free trade agreement, because it's access to 20 odd, almost 30 countries there. NAFTA, listen, U.S. is still our biggest trading partner. I don't know how much things are going to change so quickly, but it's up in the air. Mike, do you have a thought on it?
I have a thought on everything. No, I think the reality of NAFTA is I think we're in a situation where ultimately at the end of the day, the American government is trying to position themselves. Their biggest problem with NAFTA is not north of the border, but south of the border. Whether we get caught in as collateral damage in a whole exercise, I think remains to be seen. But I don't think the NAFTA trade, with the exception of softwood lumber and a couple of other things, ultimately at the end of the day, the Americans really couldn't care less about what the Canadian component of NAFTA is. So it'll see whether Trump gets to build his wall and what he has to give up in return at the end of the day. And right now, let's face it, he's got much bigger issues. I think NAFTA is kind of on the back burner as far as he's concerned.
Some other issues highlighted by the CFIB. Real quick, we can talk minimum wage up in Quebec, significantly up in Ontario.
No doubt. And listen, it's going to be an issue for small business owners that are really paying that lower amount. It's going to go up, and of course, when that goes up, all the payroll levies go up in line with it. So they're going to have to manage. They're going to have to tweak it. Are they going to have to raise prices? Are they going to have to get better with their purchasing so other expenses come down? It's a reality. It's a factor. Is it going to help the economy in the end because there's going to be more dollars going to people to spend? Could be that too. but there's some unknowns that'll definitely come into play.
It's, the hard part about all of this is you want to bring wages up, you want to bring purchasing power up. You've got, as an entrepreneur, you've got this pressure coming now from the lower end of the salary scale that now is being forced upon you. You've got the tax system which pushing down on you as an entrepreneur and not trying to create any kind of leeway or wiggle room, if you will. So what's happening? The bottom line of the entrepreneur is getting squished, and the pressure at some point has to find its way. And if you look at what's going on in the American economy is wonderful, it's great, but not necessarily at the low levels. And I think you have the same problem in Canada. You're not seeing a lot of strength coming from the small entrepreneurs right now.
Finally, Josh, real quick, where are we at with businesses, family businesses here in Canada, trying to divvy up the business income among family members?
Well, that's the whole Morneau CRA proposals that came out, and it's still a little unclear, but they are allowing for direct family members, for spouses, for if you're over 65, if you have a certain number of hours in the business, they're allowing more leeway in that. But it is still unclear, and we'll wait to see how the chips fall specifically.
Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD 800. We'll chat with Josh and Mike about their business, FL, coming up next.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL's Josh Miller with you for our first show of the year. And we're actually just taking some time coming into our 10th year doing the show to talk about FL and your business and you guys as entrepreneurs. So Josh, your partner, Mike Newton, is here as well. Mike,
who is our
back.
Fearless leader. He is our managing partner.
Managing partner, excuse me.
Nobody else wanted the job.
Mike, we'll ask you the same question. Josh, actually, you ask the question because let's make it a little bit weirder. Ask Mike what you guys do for a living.
Somebody asked me a question.
Michael Newton, managing partner of FL Fuller Landau.
Yes, Josh.
What does FL do?
Well, I can sit here for hours and talk about it. The reality is it starts out as your traditional audit and accounting and tax services, but we've tried to create much more over the years in terms of trying to bring in a lot of other services that kind of make us a one-stop shop. I'm a firm believer in multiple touches. So the more a client touches the firm in various aspects of what we do, the better it is. So we do HR consulting, we do some IT consulting, we do virtual CFO work. There's obviously a lot of business and management consulting work that goes on, business valuation. So, there's a whole bunch of things that fall into the corporate finance side. So you've got insolvency work, you've got bankruptcy, you've got reorganization. So there's a number of things that our partner sitting in the room, if I don't actually give a shout out to Patrick and what he does during the day, he's going to get a complex. So there's enough things to keep us going.
Now, the type of clients, private, public, size, like who do we deal with?
It really disturbs me that I have to explain this to Josh, but
there's interested listeners out there,
okay.
Mike.
So we don't do much work in the public market sector. We don't do any A&A type work, compliance work. The reality is it's a special sector that is really not our sweet spot. You're going to end up going to the big boys when it comes to dealing in the public marketplace. So ours are traditionally owner managed, owner operated family businesses. Don't make the mistake that means that's a $2 or $3 million business. You've got hundreds of millions and billion-dollar companies that are family run and private businesses. So it's a full gamut. I would say the sweet spot probably revolves around 5 million to 50 to 75 million of volume. Pretty much our sweet spot, but we do have client groups that are in the hundreds of millions, and we do have some smaller clients as well.
Now, the firm has been around 55 years, and there is no doubt one of the major aspects then, now, tomorrow is transitioning from partner to partner, transitioning accounts, and always ensuring that the client is serviced to the nth degree, as we always like to have. So, maybe you can take us back to the day that you started. 1989, I believe it was.
Yes, my therapist has told me I'm not allowed to discuss this in public, but okay. I
Well,
started on May 15th, 1989, the same day that Josh Miller did. So the two of us started as summer students together. The firm at the time had just finished a merger between another group. We were a little bit all over the building. We were on 4 different floors, a little disjointed. Spent the next few years, I guess, trying to understand each other and move in that direction. Hit a point at the end of 1994 where managing partner shifted to Gilles Marleau, and Gilles' job, I guess, was to get us to that next generation of young, up-and-coming professionals for legacy. No doubt that by the time that the late 90s rolled around, you got a plethora of young, aggressive professionals who ultimately, at the end of the day, want a little bit of power. So we'll say we knocked heads a few times along the way. I still think that Gilles, who was my predecessor as managing partner, was extremely patient and talented. I would have thrown myself out a long time before that he did, but I think he was just looking to retire. So.
How did you guys make partner? What advice would you give to professionals in the same position, young professionals trying to make partner at their firm? And who made partner first?
Mike's a year older.
Yeah, so everything in our professional careers I've done a year sooner, but that's only because I'm a year older. So let's leave it at that. So yes, I was partner at for Jan 198. He was Jan 199. He says, gloating with a big smile on his face.
I still look up to him, figuratively, of course.
Yes, that's only when I have the high chair. So, the reality of making partner at the time was a byproduct, I think, of looking far enough down the road and saying, what does this firm need going forward? A lot of the problems with professional firms, and whether that's law firms or accounting firms or even engineering firms, is this inability to get to the next generation, is the inability to try and have aggressive yet big picture thinking. So for good or for bad, the story goes that they sent us all off to a conference on Vancouver Island, and somebody came back as the ringleader, aka me, with a whole bunch of things that the firm, in order to get to the next generation, needed to start dealing with. And we started to move it forward. And Jill and I worked very closely for a number of years. Again, I reiterate that I would have thrown myself out long before. And by end of 2003, we kind of passed the reins, and I've been sitting in that chair for 15 years now. So I'm in year 15 of a 4-year term.
Wow.
And transition is constant. I mean, sometimes it's out of necessity. When we became partners, there was a little bit of necessity behind it, as some of the older partners really were hitting that retirement age. But then there's a vision aspect that I think we've come to over the years. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about vision and, of course, about people, because you can't run a firm. Your biggest asset is your people, and that's an important part.
And entrepreneurs, if you're looking to prevent fraud and theft from your business, Patrick Sullivan will join us later in the program to talk about that. But for now, chatting with Mike Newton and Josh Miller from FL about their business on today's Entrepreneur.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL Montreal's Josh Miller and his partner, managing director of FL, Mike Newton. And guys, we're talking about your business today because we're going on our 10th year here on today's Entrepreneur. You guys are extremely involved in the community, and let's talk about what you do. So just a quick recap for those just joining us. What is FL Montreal?
So FL Montreal started as your traditional audit and accounting firm. Certainly branched out in a lot more in terms of consulting work, HR consulting work. We do business valuations. We do insolvency re-engineering, reorganization works, virtual CFO work. A lot of things that you expect from a bigger firm that we've tried to incorporate in a firm our size.
So you were starting in the late 80s, early 90s, just out from school. You worked way up to partners in the business. Mm-hmm. What was your goal, and how did you sort of get to own a business while becoming an employee? And what advice would you give to people who are employees who maybe one day could see themselves owning part of that business? Well,
I think you've got to see at the end of the day, the old proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I think in most organizations, the buyout component, and whether that's a professional services business or whether it's an ongoing manufacturing organization, the cost associated with buyout and the effect on cash flow, certainly as much as you can see a long-term value and a long-term vision, the cash flow on an annual basis has to make sense. And we went through a few rough periods kids there in the late 90s when we became partners as part of the traditional transitioning component. And I'll save the partnership agreement and some conversations for my therapist and a bottle of bourbon. But
but I wanted to hear about the
yeah, I
partnership
know you
agreement.
do. You told me to be concise and to the point. I don't have enough time to be on that. But the reality at the end of the day is, is how much are you putting out today to buy something long enough in the future, and how do you manage to attract top talent if there's only so much falling to the bottom line?
So suffice to say, you guys took a big risk at the time, sort of going for partner. How did you know this would succeed? How did you know the business would succeed?
I don't think you do. I think when the advantage you have of a professional services business is you're selling your own brain at the end of the day, and for some days that's good, and some days it's not so good. But you look down the road and you say, okay, is there a need for this? Are you providing something? Do you see a vision at the end of the day that's more than what you are now? And I joke and I laughed at the lawyer when I sent the partnership agreement to, called me back laughing and said, "You're out of your mind if you sign this partnership agreement." So we looked at each other and said, well, is there more to this than meets the eye? And clearly we saw a vision that was going to be enough to drive things forward. And in order to maintain, like I said, in order to maintain the talent, you got to be throwing in enough money to the bottom line. And back then we weren't. So it was it was an uphill battle for everybody.
And there's no question that, certainly in my recollection and why I stayed, was there was a great people aspect to it. Not everybody was perfect. We did have, butt some heads with some of the previous partners there and changing the partnership agreement. But overall, there definitely was positive.
Oh.
There were some great people around the table. There was a lot of talent around the table, and a lot of heart. And I think we all got along. Many of us saw each other, saw eye to eye. Some of the younger partners that were coming up, and I think that was definitely one of the areas, because we had the ability to affect change and get our vision into the partnership.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at the people around the table. I mean, obviously, had we thought we were dealing with a bunch of shysters and people that were not going to, work with us, then we would have said goodbye very early. But as Josh said, there was a great group of people. There was a founding group of partners that, had the vision, maybe a little reluctantly some days, but, I think we wouldn't have done anything different given the scenario. And they were very good mentors to us, and there's no doubt that, you hope at the end of the day you can provides that kind of framework for the next group that's coming up, because that's the stage we're at now. We're at that next generation that's starting to hit the ground as new partners, and where do we go as a firm?
And that's what I wanted to head next. And I'll kind of repeat some of my comment earlier. In our business, in the professional services business, there's no doubt the salaries, the people, the dollars, the talent is a large component of the finance aspect. Some of it look at it as your biggest expense, but others, and I think this is where we fall in, look at it as your biggest asset. How do you handle that asset? And so I'll turn the question to you, Mike. We have, we're a little more than 100 people today, and we have 4 generations under one roof.
Yeah, I mean,
so how does, and combine that with moving forward with a vision, with young partners coming up, how does a firm handle that?
Shockingly, I still have most of my hair, and I'm only partially medicated. But
are you shrinking?
No, well, shrinking. I wasn't that tall to begin with. So look, I mean, if you look at it, you're at any point in time, if you consider retired guys that are still coming in, to either whether they're still involved in clients or coming in to replace to go, you've got range of 20 years old to 80 years old that are walking the halls of a firm. And, you've got to look at this and you've got to say to yourself, well, how do you balance out the differences in the generations? How do you, provide for everybody to get the respect that they deserve in order to, continue to get the mentoring and the support you need from some of the older people, while you're still trying to create a working environment for some of the younger ones that provides something. Now, if you said to people, you know what, you're getting a job at an accounting firm, anybody with any kind of, excitement in their voice is going to go, really? Like, so how are you going to keep me? What are you going to do that's not going to be in the accounting profession? And you spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money on HR. You spend a lot of time on talent and culture, because, as Josh said, that's our asset. That's what sells.
I'll also say maybe your experience sort of working your way up from partner and sort of proving that you can be an entrepreneur yourselves. How has that helped you give better advice to clients?
Well, the very first question when I took over as managing partner, a client looked at me as if to say, like, what's wrong with you? And he said, why would you ever want to take that role in a professional firm? I said, well, I've helped you running your firm. Now I want to prove that I can do this for myself. And that the entrepreneurial side of me had always wanted to run something. I have to say that the ability to do the work that we do at the high level of the consulting with our clients is really, it's augmented by the work that we do on our own business and vice versa. I mean, some of the greatest insights into running our business I've managed to get from some of our clients. Some of the good things they did, some of the bad things they did. Don't tell them because they're going to send me a bill for it. But the reality is we've learned a lot along the way of watching and managing people and how to address things. And there is no doubt that the entrepreneurial side of you have to have that entrepreneurial side if you're going to run an accounting firm, if you're going to run an engineering firm, if you're going to run a law firm, or you're going to run anything. It doesn't happen on its own.
And there's not really time to answer this, but are you measuring more today what you can manage versus the touchy-feely, even though there's a whole bunch of generations?
I would have to tell you that it's probably still a solid 50-50 split. I mean, I do live with accountants, so I have to back up my gut feeling with numbers. But the reality is there is still a very large part of what we do that's psychology, that's people-oriented, that you can't necessarily put your finger on at the end of the day. And I think that is an ongoing, that will never change.
Coming up next, we're going to shift focus a little bit and talk to Patrick Sullivan of FL about loss prevention, theft prevention, and lots more, plus the one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur as well on the way.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL's Josh Miller with you, and we're talking about FL on the program tonight. Mike Newton's here, Managing Director of FL Montreal, and we'll turn to Patrick Sullivan, Trustee as well at FL. Welcome back, Patrick.
Good night, gents.
And Josh, we're going to talk about theft prevention on the program tonight.
Well, there's no doubt that you're a small business, a small medium business, an SME, and there's multiple ways people can take advantage of your business, inside and outside the company. So when we're looking at not just employees, you're looking at suppliers, you're looking at customers, and maybe we can deal with it one at a time, Patrick, is when you're a small business, and maybe we'll start with the employee side of it. What should entrepreneurs look for? What's the challenge in trying to keep their employees honest, or the kind of the signs when they might not be anymore?
Well, the key factors are pretty simple. You have to look at the lifestyles of your key people in the organization. People that all of a sudden become workaholics when they never were. They like to come in early, leave late. All of a sudden you see them driving around fancier cars, and obviously you're aware of the type of earnings that they have. So if you see a switch in lifestyle, that might be an indication that some money's being drained somewhere. Another area, obviously, people sometimes run into family issues. They run into divorce cases. It can be a gambling problem. It can be a drug problem. Those are the type of issues that you have to monitor closely in order to be able to see and react, and then take measures in order to assess, hey, am I is the money going out the door here? Or my people still are honest, and, it's just something that's going wrong.
If it's not so obvious, or if, you're an entrepreneur that maybe is not so observant, are there certain things you should do? I mean, you take over some of their activities for a little while. Like, what can entrepreneurs do to kind of fight some of this challenge?
I'm pretty old school. I like to say, take the time at a certain point to do a sort of an audit. I like to do these night audits where give me my bank recs and give me my return checks. I'd like to take a look at them. Give me the deposit book. Obviously, you want to make sure that it's not necessarily the same person that opens the mail, puts it into the books, goes and makes the deposit, because then, the whole flow of information can be tainted easily by one person. So you have to put in measures, to keep their noses clean. And that being said, I like to give me the papers and show me what's going on, and then you can challenge.
Now, let's look at it from a customer or supplier standpoint, where maybe they can start taking advantage without the entrepreneur knowing?
Same problem again. Whoever signs the PO should not be on the receiving end and on the one posting it into the books, and vice versa. Because obviously we've seen that happen a lot, where the buyer gets into cahoots with a supplier and gets a kickback somehow. So you have to have the people monitoring also your costs, because you can have a surprise or short shipments or whatever. And sometimes you have to do these inventory checks as well, because sometimes people will be in cahoots. It's not necessarily only one individual; it can be 2 or 3 individuals in the organization that are going to be playing around.
Now, I mean, as entrepreneurs, are they better off doing the checks on their own? Sometimes is the threat of an outside person coming in, would that help or be consistent? Or should the entrepreneur, the owner himself, just go in and check it all?
Well, normally the entrepreneur is not necessarily going to have the time to do everything himself and to validate everything. That's why external professionals come into play. And obviously, it's always a surprise. When we do these types of mandates for banks that want us to go and validate the information that the client's providing them on the inventory, obviously they don't rely on the internal people to do it. They'll send in professionals to go and, kick the tires. Is the stuff really there, or it's not there?
How can a business that's not a cash business be victim of this? So what are some creative ways that you've seen of people sort of diverting funds?
One of the most creative ways is the supplier information that you're buying, but you're not necessarily getting what you're buying, or you think you're getting a good price, which you aren't.
Create an employee.
I've seen people forge signatures. I've seen people issue credit notes to customers where the customer had already sent in the money, but it was diverted to their personal bank account. So there's a multitude of ways this, even though you're not dealing in hard coins, to divert money.
And then, of course, there's the online methods. I think, Mike, even you received an email once, what looked like an internal email requesting fund transfer.
I got one last week. I mean, as recently as last week. It's the ongoing debate of saying, we need this wire transfer. We've tried to reach you, and it's theoretically coming from Michael Newton to somebody in our accounting department. She came to see me. She goes, "Where do you need the do you need them?" No, it's phishing scams. So there's always something floating around.
So there's no doubt. Basically, the entrepreneur needs to be vigilant and needs to not rely on routine. Get out of the routine and check things every now and then. Thanks very much, Patrick.
Pleasure.
And as we approach the last moment of our show, I'll turn to my longtime friend and our managing partner, Mr. Michael D. Newton, and ask you, Michael, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
Execute. Get things done. I think most are not executing people.
You don't mean kill people.
No. Well, sometimes. But no, I think execution. I think it's getting the job done. Most people fall down on the job of talking a good game and never actually getting things accomplished. And if you do get things done and you make a mistake, turn on a dime and fix it. Don't be too proud to say, I've got to go through with this. If it's not working, move on. You got to be able to make a decision.
Josh, what about you?
One piece of advice for today's entrepreneur, I would say, certainly in the context of a professional services firm, listen to your people and have an open mind. It's right or wrong. There are new ideas. There are new ways that can be had. There are new ways to slice a piece of bread sometimes. So be open about it and sometimes trust your people.
Well, thanks, guys, and it's been fun doing this for so long and watching you guys expand and take over new companies, and it's really inspirational to watch. So thanks for sharing your stories tonight.
Thank you.
Next week on the program, Josh, JRS Media.
Bureaucracy, actually, it's Bureaucracy.
Oh, Bureaucracy. Excuse me.
That's okay. It's a huge car event that takes place in Mirabel on an annual basis, and it should be interesting to hear their story.
Excellent. Next Monday at 7 here on CJAD 800. Have a good night.